Hello, everybody, and welcome to another special episode of Carlton People. Off-season time means we'll be doing plenty more of these, and I'm excited to be talking. This is, I guess, part two, in a sense. I'm speaking to Lachy today. Lachy is the other half, together with Ian, who you would have listened to previously. Lachy, mate, how are you doing?
Mate, I'm fantastic. It's a pleasure to be here. I've wanted to be a Carlton person for a while. So, yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you. And, I'm excited to have a chat with you. You do a great job with the Blue Broad channel. I'm obviously a big fan. So, yeah, it's great to be here.
I appreciate it, mate. It's and the feeling's mutual. Obviously, had a really good chat with Ian, and we spoke about you guys in 2020 and the emergence of the pod. And I think for a lot of us, it's probably one of those things where starting a podcast, you talk about it a lot. And I guess I'll get the story from you in a moment. You talk about it a lot, and then it comes to doing it, and then are we going to keep doing it? So why don't you run us through? Actually, let's start where we always start. We'll get to the pod in a minute. Let's start with you and you as a Carlton person. Where does it all begin?
Yeah, I like the sound of that. Well, yeah, you're right. You obviously have to be a pretty bloody passionate Carlton supporter to want to have a podcast that you do every week. So I definitely would put myself in that category as just being a diehard fan. And it's been like that, my entire life as early as I can remember. Some of my earliest memories are, being at Optus Oval with my dad and, meeting the players back in the day. I'm 24 myself, so I was born just after the golden premiership era, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, some of my earliest memories, being down at the club and meeting Captain Carlton is one that I remember fondly, and getting a photo with him. And yeah, so always has been a massive Carlton supporter, and through my whole life. And yeah, like you said, it just got to a stage where Ian and I talk about Carlton together so much, we're just like, why don't we just chuck this out there and see if anyone actually likes it? And people did, which was honestly a surprise to us. So that's why I've kept it going, and yeah, we're loving it. And also just being a part of the Carlton community, there's, as you know, there's so many other great podcasts and people out there. It's great to be a part of.
Yeah, it's I guess it's a very podcast. Like a friend of mine introduced me to podcasts years ago, and I was very, off it. I was like, nah, I don't know about this. And then, but it's just sort of where we're at. We've gone from podcasts being a bit of a boutique, unique thing to now becoming a little bit more mainstream because you have a little bit more control over what you're listening to, and there's no ads for the most part. And now 2020, I think, I try and keep tabs on the other footy clubs and their fan channels, but I don't think there's many other clubs like ours who have this many podcasts and fans coming from different angles.
Yeah, it's brilliant, isn't it? That's something that, one of the biggest things we've loved about it is the Twitter community, around game day and all that kind of thing. And yeah, so many people contributing different kind of areas, and so much positivity as well, which I know is something that you love. And that's something that Ian and I try and bring to it is, being as optimistic and positive as possible around our boys. So yeah, the community that has just been built is awesome. And yeah, we're stoked to be a part of it and contributing a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's actually a lot. I think everyone that does, whether you have a podcast or not, I think just engaging in the online content is helping the club, and it's why we have such a strong club and why we're fortunate to have be a part of such a strong and big club. Now, I guess we've got to marry. I guess for the men, we've got to marry that fan engagement together with on-field performance. The women are doing just fine. The women seem to be playing the brand of football that we wish the men played.
Very true, very true. They could definitely teach them a thing or two. And that's the thing, this year as well, with how different it's all been. I mean, the biggest way that I've been showing my support is obviously getting to as many matches as I can. So without the opportunity to do that this year, taking it online was a good opportunity. So yeah, it's been great. Definitely going to be continuing it and hopefully getting some guests on our pod as well, such as yourself, to kind of, keep growing it.
You let me know, mate. I'm available.
I like it.
So let's go back a little bit more again. So obviously born and bred blue bagger. What is the earliest? How far back does the memory go? Even if it's just a fleeting moment, what's the memory?
That's a great question. Yeah, as I said, I have memories of myself, which get reminded because of photos. Like I said, being down at Optus Oval, and there's a few kind of games and moments that stick in my head as well. one that is extremely vivid is the game where Fev kicked that bomb from 60 against Adelaide, if you know the one that I'm referring to.
Yes, sir.
Obviously an epic Carlton highlight. That's one when I was, which I remember fondly. I suppose my first favourite player as well was Ryan Houlihan, which Ian won't like me saying because I'm not sure he was his biggest fan. But I remember, seeing him play when I was very young and liking the way that he did it. So that was kind of my first, memories of that. Were you a Hoops fan, Houlihan?
I was a Hoops fan. I wouldn't say he was my favourite.
I don't know why he was, but there's something about him. The 33, it stuck to me.
There was, when he got his career, I started appreciating him more because it became, he was closing in on 200 games, and that's obviously a massive honour to do that for a footy club. And for me, it was Kuda. Kuda was the first, icon. I'm sure he was for a lot of us, and then that sort of moved into, Mark Murphy was, the kid that I was, thinking I'd latch onto him for his career, and he's now one of the oldest guys on the list. Which, mate, to this day, it blows my mind that he's not the kid anymore.
Yeah, 100%, and that felt for me when Cruz announced his retirement. It really felt like only yesterday that we had that third number one draft pick in a row, and we're like, oh, we have this young crop now. So seeing him go, that was a wake up call as well.
Yeah. What's your? I mean, there's so many great games over the years. What's one of your favourite memories? Game. Give me some of the top. Let's say the top three without order, just to make it a little easy.
I love that. I mean, the one that I'm sure a lot of people would say in recent times was the Richmond final. I didn't get to go to the game because I was studying for Year 12 exams, which was a bugger, but watching that one was brilliant. And the only final that I have got to go to that was a win was the one against the Bombers. So that game as well sticks out. And then the other one I'd probably say is one that I just love to rewatch is that game where we came back against Port Adelaide. It might have been that year, actually, 2013 maybe, where we had a massive comeback to make it into the finals. There's just just the plays in that third and fourth quarter, clutch Gibbs, a big Tom Bell goal. I could just watch it daily. Just a great game. So yeah, they're probably the ones that stick out.
Yeah, no, I love that. I remember, for me, a random regular season game was the 2012 Friday night round 3 flag favourites against the Pies. Goals.
I do remember that. That's a good one. I like that a lot. I love a random regular season win that sticks in your mind. They're great.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I think the Geelong game this year will be that for me moving forward because I adored that game.
I actually watched that game the other night.
Yeah, that first quarter is rewatchable as hell. It's great brand of footy. If we could put that together every week, my word.
Yeah, tell me about it. Well, we're in, obviously we're recording this after the 2020 grand final, and, we're now starting to enter silly season, which unfortunately for us, that's kind of been the highlight of the year. It's the most exciting time of the year
You're right.
For us. So I want to talk a bit with you and just to get your thoughts and your views on the rebuild in 26, 7, 8. Okay, we get it. It happened. It didn't work. I want to turn the focus to what we're doing now and just get your thoughts on a high level. What are you seeing about this group, and where do you sit with this group and the rebuild?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. I think Ian and I both are extreme fans of the trade period, and you're right. It's because it's the time where optimism is at its highest for the Blues. And, we love when there's a bit of action, which was good last year. And I suppose that's something that I'm, very hopeful for this year. There's those couple of things that everyone's talking about that look to be locked away, and hopefully they are. But I definitely hope that we're going to be big players in terms of getting us on that right track, which I think we're on. I think it's hard to deny that we are on the right track. And it was a positive season. We moved forward, maybe not as much as some fans would have hoped for, but I think I tried to look realistically at this season, and how we finished was about how I hoped we would. And, that gives me faith that we can improve next year to have a finals finish is how I think should be the pass mark for next year, because a couple of wins that we let slip away this year, if they went the other way, we would have been in there, and then people would have, they wouldn't get enough Carlton. Everyone would have been on the bandwagon. So I think we're in a good spot, and I think it looks like the trade period will be successful. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're as confident as getting those guys in the door as everyone else seems to be, but it's pretty optimistic, I think, if you look at the guys we're looking at.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a few weeks now to digest the season, from a Carlton standpoint. So the disappointment and the frustration's kind of been removed. I felt like the last month of footy left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but I understand there's so many factors there. There's, the bulk games in short amount of time and all of that. I'm loving, and I'm hoping that by the time this gets uploaded, Zach Williams has been announced, and hopefully Saad's not too far away. But for me, I look at Saad, I look at Williams, and if we add them into the group that we have right now, and then for me, it's more about, can we get this list healthy, as opposed to can we go and get 2 more A graders or 2 more whatever players we need. I mean, I'm not opposed to trading for what we need, but I just feel like a lot of talk gets spoken about, the help for Cripps and another big-bodied midfielder, whereas I'm looking at it like, well, we've invested so heavily in the draft. Stocker, Kemp, Setterfield, obviously he was a trade, but Walsh, I feel like those guys are going to be the help. And if we go and get other players in, is that their development? Then I start thinking, well, maybe we have what we need. We just got to get them on the bloody park.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, and I think it's true. I think it can't be overstated how important players like even just Curnow was. If we could have slotted him in this season, that's probably good for a couple of wins with how he was playing and that kind of thing. So I like that look at it a lot. I mean, there's so much. The players that you listed there, all you would think are going to show improvement next year. Stocker and Kemp have not played, so. Yeah, I'm super optimistic in that regard, and I think you're right. It's not all just about bringing in those players, but if we end this period with just bringing those 2 guys in, I'll be stoked, because I think you're right. That list there, healthy, it's big. There's a lot there.
There's just something about us every year. I know every team has injuries, but we seem to get at least one injury long term to our top 3 or 4 or 5 players. We've had Doc for the last 2 years, which has been a disaster, but we're happy to have him back. And obviously it was Charlie's turn this year. And when you look at the forward line, I mean, really it was kind of dysfunctional from the standpoint of Harry had a terribly interrupted preseason. Charlie, we know, didn't play. Mitch was also sort of had a soft tissue
in and out.
And he missed as well. And then there's the whole notion of, well, we've got to build chemistry, but we haven't really seen what the plan is with these 3 forwards yet, because they haven't been available.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly right. And what's that going to look like when Charlie is healthy? That's one of the biggest questions that we've been discussing all year on the podcast with those 4 guys. How does that work? And does someone not play, or who plays where? Like, how's that going to look?
Yeah. What's the biggest sort of, for you guys, what are you looking at this off season, whether it be a trade, whether it be training, whether it be game plan? What is our number one priority for improving for next year?
Yeah, well, I think something that we've always been calling out for this season, or looking at closely, was the halfbacks, especially with Simpson going out and having that run. So that's why it's so exciting, the prospect of Saad, because he just seems to fit the mold for me personally. The player that we need to bring in is that run-off halfback, even though I do think that our defence is our best line. And I'm so happy with the development of all the players at the moment down there. I mean, yeah, the forward line really is the one that intrigues me most about how that's going to look next season. I could not tell you what that's going to look like in round 1, whether Betts is playing, whether Fish is going to stay in the forward line, or whether he's going to move around, what tools are playing. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see whether there'll be any moves in the off season with any of those players. It looks unlikely, I feel, with like McGovern's contract, and there's been whispers about Levi, for a few years with Levi. So I'm not sure. I feel like it'll be interesting to see if there's any forward line changes that might give us an inkling of what it'll look like in round 1, because there's just so many ways that it could go.
Yeah, I'm pretty big on looking at the development, whether that's the coaching staff or what sort of programs we've got in place, because I think there's a few players who have been on the list for a few years now who I can confidently say I've seen improvement. I think Tom De Koning's the perfect one. I think the program that we've put together for him and the patience that we showed with him and showing him some games early and then getting a good block of training and just knowledge under his belt before he debuted. I know people wanted to see him very early this season, but I like the fact that we waited for him. I think Fisher, I think he did develop in 2020. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I think maybe Williamson's another one.
I was going to say Willow, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just mindful of what's our development like, and that's what leads me to think about the coaching staff. And you look at a guy like Justin Lepage, for example, who at the time of filming he's available, and you look at the work that Dale Amos has done. He's done a really good job with our backline, and then I just think, okay, well, is it time to be ruthless now and say, hey, Justin Lepage, is it like, what do you think about the coaching group? Does it need a change up?
Coaching is definitely not an area that I look into a lot. I'm just not really, I've always been kind of unsure about the impact of coaching. Not that I don't think it's plays a role, but its importance. So it's not something that I really know a lot about in terms of our coaching structure at the moment. I know it's something that Ian likes to look at a lot more deeply. But obviously, so really all I can really go off is the names rather than, the quality of the coach, just because I'm just really not too sure about that.
Yep.
Is there, I mean, how do you see it in terms of what we currently have? And like, is there guys that have been there for a while that you think might be moving on or where could we improve?
I just can't help but feel like a fresh coaching box is sort of needed in a sense. I know, like, I love Johnny Barker. He's been there for I think he's been there for over 5 or 6 years, and
good point.
I know. I just feel like, for me personally, and it's a very easy to say formula, but I just want to have more winners, and that can be on field, that can be off field. I thought the Luke Power acquisition was fantastic for us, just because you want more guys. For me, anyway, I feel like I want more guys at the football club who've been there, done it, know what it takes, command that respect. And I think Luke Power definitely is that. And then when I heard about the Justin Lepage news and how he's going to move on, I just straight away I'm thinking, gosh, he'd be so good for a guy like Jacob Wiedering, to learn off a triple premiership player and then a triple premiership assistant coach. So I just look at that and I want to get more winners in the club.
I love that. I definitely think that winning environment and atmosphere is incredibly important. And and I've always thought of it in terms of a player sense, like bringing in those more experienced players that have been there and they can, they understand it. But you're right. It goes the same on the assistant coaching line as well. So, it's super important. And just on the coaching, I just want to ask you, were you happy with the head coach's role this season and how he went?
Yes. Short answer is yes. I'm invested in Teague, so I'm going to give him that time, because I think one thing we probably learned with Brett Ratton, I should say, is we need to, once we make the selection, and I'm assuming that the Teague selection was done properly, so they've already done the research. You just need to give them some time to learn and develop into that role. And Teague's probably someone that will need to learn the role a bit more, and it's going to take some time. And in a funny way, he's sort of very similar to the playing list. Now, he's got a lot of experience. He's coached premierships, not at AFL level, but at other levels. So he's got the resume. I think he's got a good understanding of the football club. He's obviously played for us. He's one of best and fairest. And I think that the key moment this year, I mean, I'm sure he's given them a spray before, but that spray, I mean, I don't know what he said, but it felt like I think they needed to hear.
I think you're 100% right. 100% right. Yeah, I mean, that one of my bigger frustrations is when, like, Teague has been used as a scapegoat this season, and I know a lot of it is kind of more the mainstream media, but fans do it as well. I'm with you. I just don't think he was to blame for some of the issues that we had this season. And after our first 2 losses this season, people are saying, "Oh, too soon. They shouldn't have hired him so quickly. That was reckless. So I'm with you. I'm wanting to give him time to, get involved with it, because it's been 1 season and a half. It's nothing.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Exactly right. You mentioned about the finals being a pass mark in 2021. I don't want to be negative and say what if we don't make it, but how strong is that expectation? And I mean, the reality is, for me, my observations of the fan base are we're divided into many. There's many of us, and we all have different thoughts about what's happening. But for the most part, you've got the successful generation who pass down the stories to people like you and I. And I just feel like once we're successful again, the fan base will actually go to another level of connection. I think there's just such a disconnect, because the Carlton that you and I know is a completely different football club to the Carlton our parents, uncles, aunties know.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Yeah, my dad and I watched the majority of games together, and he lived a life where Carlton losing a couple of games in a row was very weird and not ordinary. So you're right. I'm with you there. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's a pass mark. I might have used that phrase earlier. It's wins and losses is not a great way to judge it, in my opinion. I know that's the way the majority of people do. And it's hard to analyze it in different ways, because that's the obvious barometer where you finish on the ladder. But we know that there was games like last year where we thought we played really well and didn't get the chocolates. So we knew that was there. And I thought that was the case still this year as well, even though there was a couple of games where we played well and lost. And there was some games that we didn't play well and we managed to win. So it's really, really hard for me to put that where that pass mark is. I feel like you know when we're improving or not. So there is a world where we miss finals next year, and I'm still happy with the progress. It's just about being competitive, and games like the game against Adelaide in that dark period, like you said, they're the times where you're like you question where it's going, and it's hard to stay on track with your mindset around that.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. I think you're right. I think one thing we did in 2020, which we should all be pleased with, is we didn't have any of those, 10, 11, 12 goal beats,
Absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's a great point. There was pretty much every game there was a moment where we looked like we were going to win it, which is positive, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Now it's just about, and that's the thing that gets me excited, because it's like, okay, well, they've now put themselves in winning positions, and they've fallen over the line, and they've won games, they've completely fluffed it, and they've lost games that they shouldn't have lost. But getting yourself into that position over and over again is definitely what you need to do to eventually step over the line. Because, I mean, let's talk about Richmond. I still remember they couldn't win games. They just couldn't win games. They were getting so close, and they had all those, shocking losses, after the siren or a kick with a minute to go. They were just losing really badly. And then I think eventually it just clicks, because you put yourself in there over and over again, and then eventually you're going to learn, right?
100%. And we saw that last year. There was all these close games where we were saying this team, we don't know how to win these close games because we haven't been there, exactly like you said then. And this year there was games where we're like, okay, we're in control. We know how to do it. And there were still those few where we didn't. But yeah, Gray misses that goal. We play at least 2 good quarters of footy against the Demons, and we beat the team on the bottom of the ladder. And then that's it. You're in the finals, and no one has anything negative to say. So it's all to say that we're in the right direction, in my opinion. I'm incredibly optimistic.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear. Talk to me a little bit about 2021 for the pod. What are the plans? Do you just continue on from where you were, or do you have anything different in store?
Yeah, good question. Definitely getting guests on is something we've wanted to do. We had obviously a bit of a spanner in the works with COVID and everything, so we've been recording it over FaceTime, which has been fine. But we're keen to get back into the studio together and do that, and looking to get some guests on. Definitely people in the Carlton community, like you do with Carlton people, and and some people from outside that direct community as well, just other Carlton fans that are in other kind of walks of life. We're excited to do. yeah, and we're super excited to get into the trade period stuff as well, because it's just such a great time. And fingers crossed, we're going to pull off a bag, and everyone will be looking at the Blues like, oh, they've made some moves this year, and it's looking good for next year. So yeah, I'm excited for the podcast next year. It'll be good.
Yeah. So who came up with the name? Talk me through the process of the name.
Great call. Well, we had this conversation where we were like, damn, we should just do this podcast. Why not? And then Ian came to me and he's like, I've been actually thinking about this for a while. I've got all this stuff. He had the name. He had the logos done. It was all prepared. We were just waiting for that moment where we came together. So I'll give him credit for all of that organization. He definitely takes the lead on that front, which I'm happy to let him do because he's doing a great job with it all.
Yeah. No, love it. One more question before I let you go. Everyone gets the same question. We've now got a little piece of history here on the channel. We'll look back on this when we're I don't know 60 or 70 years old, and we'll look at how beautiful our hair was. And
oh yeah, that's it. The fresh fades.
Yes, I want you to tell me when you think we're going to win. The men will win the next flag.
Okay, so when I think they will, not when I hope they will.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think we'll win it in I'll say 23, but I hope and I'm optimistic that we can do it in 22.
Yeah. Do you subscribe to the theory that you have to go through the heartbreak of finals before you can win a flag, or do you think you can just win a flag and then be good?
I'm going to say the latter. I think, in my mind, I can really see a world where next year we make finals and maybe it's a first round out or whatnot, but not necessarily heartbreak. I think we can make it happen. I feel like you were saying earlier, it's just all got to come together in terms of injuries and the development at the right times. And I feel like we're bloody close. Yeah.
Love it, mate. Well, I want to thank you. Thank you very much for coming on and giving me your time. I really appreciate it. I've been a follower from the outside of the pod, and you guys have been nothing but classy. And I hope to see more of you and hear more of you, and we can finally catch up in the flesh and have a beer at the MCG for God's sake. Mate,
that sounds brilliant. It's been great. Thanks so much for this, and props to you again. I'm a big fan of the channel and everything, all the work that you do. You're a great asset to the Carlton community. So much positivity and bringing everyone together. So I love it.
Appreciate it, mate. You have a good one and go the Mighty Blues.